Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
It's the 25th of November. Good God. That means it's a month until Christmas. You know what I noticed? I was looking at the calendar, and Hanukkah doesn't start until Christmas Day. I can't recall the last time that Hanukkah was after Christmas and goes into the next year. It goes through the new year because it's 8 nights. So if it starts on the 25th, it ain't going to end till 2025. And that's odd. It's sort of nice when they coincide like that in for the little Jewish kids. So I guess that's good, but man, that's late. Just saying. It's because we ain't using the same calendars. And stuff happens. I don't ever understand any of it. So, guys, I'm afraid I have joined that large group of people who cannot bear to sort of follow the news, which is, of course, problematic, given that this program is news-based. But it's not that I've told myself I'm not. It's just that when I open a newspaper or I, go online and, look at the Washington Post, I have like a visceral reaction to almost every headline. And the visceral reaction is to turn away. I mean, just to, God, I can't. I don't want to. The headline is enough. It reminds me of the fact of the Trumpians are in total control of our government, and they're just a few less than 2 months out of taking total control with his inauguration. And I don't think I want to. It'll be bad enough to be in it when the things that they do actually happen. But to get into this imagining what they're going to do or looking at them lay the groundwork, his cabinet now being fleshed out, I don't, it's a waste of my energy, not to mention my mental well-being, to follow this too closely until they actually start doing stuff. They can't do it yet, so I'm giving myself about 2 months off here. I can't, and even when they do have the power, it's going to be very, very difficult. And I mean, well, whatever. I feel like I have more of an obligation to do it by virtue of this program, so I will. One of you is telling me on chat, just rest up. We're going to need to mobilize when the deportations begin. Yeah, we can't turn away then. No. And I agree. And that's what I've said. Keep your powder dry, save your energy, because we're going to have plenty of stuff we do have to pay attention to and then respond to. So, yeah. And to see that they are really, it appears, intending to go full steam ahead with this Project 2025. I mean, I don't know about every aspect of it, but there's nothing in that Project 2025 that doesn't curl your hair or straighten it if it's already curly. I mean, it's unbelievable, the stuff in there. And the dismantling of the government being essentially what it's all about, and understanding that they are quite serious. They will attempt to dismantle the government. Wow. Okay. Well, let's see how that works. I suppose the anarchists out there, anarchists and libertarians, should be all aflutter because they'll see what occurs. Well, it'll be chaos. I mean, obviously, chaos and a lot of pain. I mean, to even see that the big car companies are begging, are begging Trump, please, please don't, like, put the kibosh on the electric vehicles and make us go back to gas power as the product, because we have put billions upon billions of dollars into switching over to EV, and now you're going to pull the rug out from under us. I mean, the amount of money wasted would be extraordinary. It'll kill us. Um, so there they are, who never wanted the EVs to start with, but and this is what happens, I guess, when you have a democratic kind of government that shifts from one party to the next, and they can just come in and undo everything that's been done in the last 4 years, including, yeah, the beginnings of an entirely different manner of change in, whatever energy sources, cars, transportation, whatever, and they can just then stop it and go back to the old way. But the people and all the stuff that I don't know, chaos. That's all I want to say. Chaos. Hold on to your hats. Just chaos. And they love chaos. They're that's their stock and trade. Wow. Okay. So I'm just telling you, it's not like I can find much that I want to talk about. I'm I'm burrowed deep into my yeah, into my refusal to deal with what's happening right now. Anyway, I am still, though, reading all the postmortem stuff because that's important to me. I don't know who's got the answer. I don't think there is one answer. There's not one reason that the Democrats lost and that the country put this horrible man, knowing he's a horrible man, back into the White House. This, well, I needn't. It's just, it's still so hard to swallow, but it is what happened. And so it is a task that we do have, um, to figure out what it is that we did that clearly did not appeal, made us unappealing to so many, because so many people didn't even bother to vote in this most consequential of elections. They sat it out. And then so many that did weren't buying what we were selling. So what our responsibility is the business that we do have to attend to. And so I continue to read any and all ideas about what that is. And anyone who decides it's just one thing, well, it's because she didn't, or it's because they didn't, or it's because blah, it's never one thing. It's just not. Because what is an election? It's the aggregate of millions of human beings' choices, of individual choices. And right there, you got to figure there's a million different reasons. Every single voter had their own reason. But some sense has to be made out of the outcome. And I thought an interesting thing that I read over the weekend, um, by a law professor, uh, about how much we, the Democrats, were depending on the law, how we turn to the legal system to hold Trump accountable. And how did that work? How did that go? I'm just asking. All of those cases, all of the ways we turned to the courts. And this guy writes, that's not obviously the way to do it. It didn't work. It didn't work. The only thing that works is at the ballot box. If you want to hold a president accountable, then you have to take him out. And we didn't do that. We didn't, I guess, trust the people. Well, maybe we did. I don't know. They sure disappointed us. But the legal route was what our default was throughout Trump's presidency. I mean, he was barely in the White House for a few weeks before we started going after him for legally, for Russian collusion, remember? And that led to Mueller. And that led to an impeachment. All of these legal recourses, every one in its way failed. The only one that didn't was the least consequential of all of them, I think we would agree, and it was the Stormy Daniels. That's the only thing where a jury, well, and also, what's her name, E. Jean Carroll, but it doesn't matter. That didn't. And I want to say this. So we talked about all the felonies that he'd done, and that's the ones that he was found guilty of. I'm now not even thinking of the correct number, 30 something, 34. The reality is it was pretty much one. It's they broke each instance down so that it seemed bigger. But to the average person watching this unfold, it did look like we were politicizing the justice system to take him out. He was able to make that sale, at least to his people, because as we went after him legally, what happened? His approval ratings increased, and it was a constant. Every time we went after him legally, he got more popular. They loved him as the victim, and we as the tormentors. He raised more money every time we went after him. And this guy, this law professor, his name is Samuel Moyne, says, you gotta, now that we see the result, it's pretty darn clear that the Democrats' search for political salvation and accountability for him, primarily by using the law, backfired. It didn't work. And this guy argues, okay, so now he's back. And if we're going to do the same thing again, if we're going to oppose him through these legalistic means again, we're probably going to fail again. Because what our job is to persuade the American people that what we are offering them and what he is offering them are two very different things, and ours is better. That we have to prevail with the voter. This guy says, for decades, Democrats have made the mistake of prioritizing legal victories over popular ones. Now, we've used them to push civil rights, to push, gay rights, gay marriage. I mean, we have had success in using the courts. But while we were doing all of that, the law was drifting to the right. And this guy knows that. The law was becoming more and more conservative. And so we didn't stop this conservative drift of the law. And the fact that we had victories made it easy for us to forget that the law is just another domain of politics where our opponents have power too. And if you look at what Trump has done to the federal courts, while we were using the law to go after him and coming up with next to nothing, he was packing the courts. So that if we go after him this time and use the federal courts, he packed the federal court. And even if we get some wins in that federal court system, the ultimate appeal that gets made is to what? The Supreme Court. And we know what he did to that. This guy says Trump showed how unprepared the law is for someone like him. The law, and we've all learned a lot about the law and our justice system, and it's not been a happy lesson. The law is open to interpretation by humans. The law allows for this discretion and selectivity in its enforcement. And if the defendant is a guy who has put the people in the robes at the bench that will use their selectivity and judgment deciding what the law is and what it is not, well, then that doesn't work too well for our side. He said there's a naivete about us, Democrats, that because we know our cause to be righteous, that we assume the law, that this using the law, this legalistic strategy, will ultimately prevail. But we're not seeing that the law itself is a political instrument. And he said this election, it became something like jury nullification. Preemptively, for all the cases against him. The people said no. Okay, I'll just give you one more thing that this guy says. I see I have a call. I'll come at you in just a sec. Unsurprisingly, this guy writes, legalistic moves produce a struggle for more power over the law. Trump's choices for Attorney General, first Gates and now Bondi, are predictable responses to the Democrats' protracted attempt to hold him legally responsible. He's going to weaponize the Justice Department. And this guy says, and let us be clear, the law has always been a weapon. And what matters is whether it advances just or unjust outcomes. We wanted it to advance just outcomes. It failed to do so. And he's going to use it for unjust outcomes. And this guy goes on to say, and because the Supreme Court now is at the apex of the system that McConnell and he and the Republicans spent 2016 to 2020 packing with their judges, the federal court system will remain enduringly hostile territory for liberal interpretations of the law for a long, long time. And then there's this gut punch. Jack Smith, the special prosecutor. He had the goods. He had them. We know he had them. It was relatively simplistic, but Trump had the judge, right? Eileen Cannon. And she stalled it and stalled it and stalled it until, oh, wait, in the stalling, one of the things that happened is the Supreme Court was able to intervene and come out with that mind-blowing immunity decision that presidents, apparently, this was all news to us, are above the law. So, if Jack Smith hadn't gone after him, we would not have that Supreme Court presidential immunity decision. And now that he's out of the picture and his case out of the picture, all that remains is the immunity decision. That is horrific. And that's what our legalistic strategy begot. He ends thusly: the law cannot make as much of a difference as liberals always hope. Instead, it has helped the enemies of liberalism win. Yeah, the headline on that story is: the legal battle against Trump was a miserable failure, and there really is no other way to parse it. And I think that is a sobering, it hadn't occurred to me, what all the stuff that he said, that wow, going after him legally, it didn't work at all. At all. He ain't going to jail because of the one case in New York. In fact, all the people that brought it are probably going after them. They'll be out of work. It's just, it's mind-blowing how it didn't work. And how we got, in many respects, the exact opposite of what we had intended. Sobering, to be sure. Caller, go ahead.
Good morning.
Hi.
Clarence Canonsburg.
Oh, Clarence, hi.
I disagree with this guy's, whoever wrote that, although I'm no law professor's, base argument, where he starts that Democrats went after Trump politically. They had no choice. You know, it wasn't Democrats, it was the American people. The dude broke the law, stole documents, secret documents and stuff. They have no choice but to prosecute him for it. You know, he instigated an insurrection.
Yes.
They had no choice but to go after him. It wasn't political. Now it ends up that, Trump was saying, hey, all this lawfare and all this nonsense, and he's going to do it.
Yes.
But they had no choice. The outcomes are terrible, all this kind of good stuff. But if we're going to be a nation of laws, you have to prosecute criminals. And it wasn't, it's not like Jack Smith was, prosecuted him. He had a jury, what do you call it? A grand jury.
That's correct.
Indicted him.
That's right.
So that's, so the evidence was there and all that kind of good stuff. So they really had no choice but to prosecute.
Well, so then, though, what does it tell us, though? That the justice system, our legal system, doesn't work very well, does it?
It doesn't work very well for people in certain positions. Like the wealthy and the politically connected and all that kind of good stuff. Now, what Jack Smith still can do at this point is write his whatever they call it, about all the stuff he had. The report, and release the report before just release it, or Jack Smith gives it to. I'm so hyped. I can't think of the what's his name?
He gives it to, I don't know, to Garland, and then Garland.
Or
he gives it to the New York Times or whatever. He just gets it out.
Well, he can't do that. He has to give the report to.
But do you think Garland's going to publicize it? Garland has been a weak sister throughout.
Because if he would have started the process on Trump earlier, than when he did, it might have been done or further along. That was like a problem. That kind of thing, because he was too worried about it looking politicized instead of just doing his job and thinking of him as a criminal who should have been prosecuted. Here's the evidence we have. You got indicted. You start throwing it through the courts.
Yeah.
Now with Biden is doing is he's trying to get as many federal judges as he can through before he's out of office. He's trying. He might even, because they say what I heard was Donald Trump broke a record on how many.
He might break Trump's. He might break Trump's record.
Yeah, he break Trump's record, but it doesn't matter. So many are coming up. That, and there's what did I read or hear that the Senate and the House, which is controlled by Republicans, can just say, you know what, we need more federal judges.
That's right.
And they can start. They can repack it again. But it's those kind of little things like that I always tell people, like, how you know so much about that? I pay attention. I'm just a guy that draws funny pictures for a living. You know what I mean? And if I can understand this stuff, you can understand this stuff. You just have to get your priorities, your priorities straight.
But it is sobering. I
What's
mean,
important, huh?
it's so sobering that they now have 4 more years to, as you point out, pack the court so that it does their bidding
Now,
more often.
When you start talking about the, and I like, I've talked about Michael Popak before, and I like his term. Trump is just a meat puppet. The guys in the Federalist Societies, the brains behind it, in Project 25 and all that kind of good stuff, they use his personality and his cult of personality to get what they want done. He's just a meat puppet, and so that's, you start looking at that stuff, and that's where it gets scary. These guys really want to go back to like pre-Civil War era type stuff.
Yeah.
So, there we go.
God help us. Well, Clarence, a damn fine rebuttal to the law professor there. Thank you. Although his point is the point that I was impressed by is how miserable a failure the Democrats using the legal system was. We didn't get them.
Yeah, it didn't work. Yeah, the legal system didn't work. It didn't work for OJ. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes the legal system fails. But you still have to
do it.
Do it. It's just to me, you got to. We're a nation of laws, so you have to. If you have the evidence, this, that, and the other thing, you got to put them through there.
No.
And what's going to happen, just if I may continue, he could do all that, with the federal judges, this, that, and the other thing, and but he could still fail. He's talking about prosecuting Jack Smith. Come on, what is he?
Exactly.
What crime did Jack Smith do? Mm-hmm. There's nothing there. Depending on, and when it comes to, there's a court in Texas. There's like one judge.
Yep.
And all of these right-wing things go to that judge.
Right.
All liberals start doing, when they start bringing up this stuff, they just got to find a liberal judge, circuit or whatever in New York or California or some blue state, and so just basically play their game. You know what I mean? And it might freeze up all this nonsense for 2 years, and that's all they need. And then
we
do the
can.
Right thing and try
no, you're right. So we know now
Yeah.
that the system works so slowly that all we have to do is do what they did and just keep gumming up the works, appeals, and on and on and on, judge shopping, whatever. But it also shows the corruption of our system.
That's why I said, like, for 2 years, because then you could try to get a Democratic Senate and House back,
Well, I think we got a shot at a
focus.
House, but the Senate doesn't look good. It does not look good. So they'll be able to keep signing off on these judges left, right, and center, because the House has nothing to do with that.
But I think, as we, nobody could predict it that Donald Trump will win again, So who knows what's going to happen in 2 years? You remember what happened in 2018? Nobody saw that coming.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah.
We have we have not a clue where this is all heading, but we do know we're in for chaos. Just
absolutely
incredible chaos. All right. Hey,
what's really interesting though is I went through this whole conversation, no bad puns. You're welcome.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, and thank you. Thank you for a great call. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Oh gosh. Yeah. I saw this great quote by Leo Tolstoy. In the end, no, that's not it. That's a different quote. Tolstoy, excuse me. Tolstoy says, wrong does not cease to be wrong because the majority share in it. So again, small comfort to us on the losing side of this election, but wrong does not cease to be wrong because the majority share in it. Oh, God. Hang on here. Let me get my act together. Well, we don't have time for me to get my act together, for God's sake. Bob says, more than anything this time around with Trump, I'm curious to know what will happen to those Trump voters and supporters who voted for him, who may be at risk of suffering from buyer's remorse. Yeah. Well, let's hope that they, connect the dots when they find their situation in life to not have been improved and, in fact, perhaps harmed. Let's hope. But I was with friends the other night and we were talking about how, and it's just so maddening that all of the things that Biden and the Democrats have put in, the Infrastructure Act and all that stuff, that takes time to for people to notice the impacts of that kind of investment. And when people will start to notice? While Trump is president. All of the stuff that the Democrats put into play will begin to bear fruit while Trump is president, and consequently, who will the people credit? Yeah. And that is just maddening. Just maddening. Oh. One other thing I saw in terms of the courts that just made my blood run cold, and I want to share it with you. I've been seeing. Have you seen how? I guess it's the Chinese government. It's so bizarre. How remember the Chinese had that one baby rule? They were a country that was just so overwhelmed in population that they told their people you can't, you're allowed one baby, that's it. And that's why there were so many baby girls that were up for adoption in China decades back, because their culture valued the boys more than the girls, and so families would put the girls up for adoption and then try for a boy, because they were only allowed one, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, what's so bizarre is that now the Chinese government is telling women to have more babies because their economy has grown, and they have a aging population, as we all do, and they need younger people to support. They need more young people, and so they're doing a lot of, when the Chinese want you to do something, a lot of times it's pretty hard to say no. So apparently there's a pretty muscular campaign, and who knows where that will go. I mean, at some point, it's pretty hard to make somebody have a baby, but there are things that can be done, right? And if you look at the Project 2025 stuff, some of the stuff that makes your blood run cold, there is stuff about women and pregnancy, and it isn't all just abortion related, but a lot of the pushback against abortion, those people are people who want more babies to be born. And there is a case that has been brought by the attorneys general of Idaho, Kansas, and Missouri. What do you notice about those 3 states? Yeah, very conservative states. So these are conservative, red state attorneys general. And they are attempting to establish a state right to challenge federal law that liberalize any rules about abortion or women's health. Now, what they're targeting specifically is the abortion pill. And what's chilling is how they go after the pill. Because in their briefs, they say that the abortion pill causes a loss in potential population, causes a loss in potential population increase, and that decreased births inflicts a sovereign injury to the state, to their states. They're saying the feds allowing this pill to keep babies from being born easily harms us at the state level who would not allow it, inflicts a sovereign injury on the state itself. This case shows, again, Project 2025 thinking, that women's job is to produce babies for the state. And this is called if you start to see this word popping around, it's natalist. This is a natalist position. Now, what happened is, and you may recall this, initially the people who went after the pill, the abortion pill, was a group of anti-abortion organizations and some doctors. And they said they had standing because they were injured. Their consciences were injured. There's something called conscience injury, that their consciences were injured from the widespread availability of the abortion pill. And even this Supreme Court couldn't swallow that. They said, no, you need an injury in fact, not in your heads. You need an injury in fact, and you do not have standing. So the abortion pill dodged because the court didn't take that case. But here's the second onslaught. The attorneys general of Idaho, Kansas, and Missouri are coming. They've come calling, and they said, okay, we have standing, and we have a different idea of the injury that this pill is causing. It's an actual injury to our ability to have our women grow our population. So these 3 states are now trying to show they haven't pulled it off yet, that they have standing to go after the pill. And if somehow they're so this is in that slow process of American justice. But just so as you know, that this is in the works, in the pipeline. The woman who wrote a piece on this is the Supreme Court. I mean, she's won Pulitzer Prizes for her work covering the courts, Linda Greenhouse. And this piece was titled "The Stunning Next Front in the Abortion Wars." And she does, history is just fascinating when we see how we live it and relive it and relive it and relive it. And I despair because now I'm old and I see how we don't learn from history. I mean, yes, each generation suffers, and learns, but it takes just 2 more generations to forget whatever lessons have been learned. And then the mistakes start again, and the same lessons have to be learned again. Greenhouse points out that abortion was common in the early 19th century. In the 1800s in America, abortion was common. And it was broadly legal. It was not illegal. Abortion. I know, that might blow your minds. It was so common that, in fact, the birth rates started going down. And as birth rates went down, something else was going up. And what that was going up was immigration. So what happened? White Protestant Americans started to freak because white Protestant women were not having enough babies, and coming through Ellis Island were a lot of, well, I don't know, dark-skinned, riffraff. Catholics, too, Jews. And those guys were having babies. So this became worrisome. And it became political. And so the issue of how to keep women from ending their pregnancies had a very convenient answer. Criminalize abortion. And by the early 1900s, less than 100 years after abortion was no big deal, it was legal, it was illegal in every state of the country. And it was a direct response to sort of the replacement theory, the white replacement theory that is driving so much of our politics today. Nothing ever changes, it seems. Humans, always the same. She ends her piece thusly. So now we find ourselves in a new natalist moment when the top lawyers of 3 states call openly for the federal courts to help in making women have more babies. And Clarence, if you're still listening, these attorneys general brought their case, guess where? In the Texas court that you mentioned, the court of a judge named Matthew Kaczmarek, the most openly anti-abortion judge on the bench. So he's going to sign off on this. There's no doubt he will sign off on this. And then he will send them, because it'll be appealed by the losers, and that appeal invariably goes to the Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, which is also a circuit controlled by Trump appointed judges. And so this force women to have birth and to make abortion much, much more difficult, since most abortions are done using the pill. So this still hasn't made its way out of Kaczmarek's court. Then it'll end up going to this Fifth Appeals Court. And she says, and as for the Supreme Court, well, you tell me. But she says, the justices might want to keep in mind Karl Marx's dictum that history repeats itself, the first time as tragedy and the second as farce. So, just again, heads up. I told you that am avoiding speculative journalism as much as possible because things happen and then we'll deal with them when they happen. But this is one to be aware of. So who knows how many months later I will say to you, hey, remember, because Kaczmarek will have signed off and said, oh, yeah, these attorneys general are right. Their states are suffering a true injury because of this abortion pill. Milton writes, the goal of Project 2025 is to make white women brood mares for the Reich. Yeah, absolutely. That is what a woman is reduced to that. Lynn writes, I don't understand why you don't think the election was rigged. What? I guess Democrats don't say things like that, but I believe it was. You do? No, I really don't. We lost fair and square. They won fair and square. There are no signs. There are two. It's too. It is. It is an atomized system. It's done at the precinct level, the county level, all over the country. There's just no way to rig it easily, where somebody wouldn't notice. If it were rigged, believe me, Democrats would be shouting. Believe me. Lynn also says, also, I saw you on the Pennsylvania game yesterday. Oh, Jesus. I never see it. It's on QED, right? Yeah, that was fun. Boy, is that a blast from the past. That is like 30 years ago. 30 years ago. Yeah, Rust Belt says, no, we lost because too many Democrats stayed home. Yeah, and that failure is on us. There's no doubt. That failure is on us. Oh, Jesus. Hey, I guess we haven't spoken since Gates got knocked off and Bondi came on. The big shock there, but people are hoping that it shows that maybe a few of these other more noxious appointees will not be signed off on. The two that really freak me out, and the one that in order, I would say Tulsi Gabbard is the next most frightening one, and then the defense secretary, and then RFK Jr. Dr. Oz overseeing my Medicare. Well, but you know what I was thinking? So today I read there's now a listeria outbreak. It's killed an infant. It's sickened a whole bunch of people in California, New York, Illinois, New Jersey. They don't know how many others. And this goes back to some poultry and meat from a specific, source. They've been able to, figure out where it's come from. But is it just me, or have there been just almost constant uh, food recalls of late? It just seems constant where I'm thinking, oh, carrots? What? Organic carrots? What? Processed meats? What? This, that, and the other. And they're killing people. Obviously, listeria, it's this, it's that. It's, and you realize, oh, raw milk now with a bird flu. I mean, in dairy cattle, and now RFK Jr. is a big, yeah, drink that raw milk. It's really good for you. And now there have been some cases of, so what you can't help but think, oh dear, these are these cases are happening under a FDA and a CDC and all that whole health apparatus, health and food apparatus, that is still under the control of people who believe in the mission, the Democrats. What the hell is going to happen when these folks in 2 months that don't know anything, and after Musk and Ramaswamy have thrown out all the federal workers, the inspectors, and the other people who know their jobs, of whom there are already not enough, what the hell is going to happen then? So if we're seeing this sort of like these constant stories about Americans being sickened and or deadened by unsafe food, what are we in for when they fire all the folks who know what's going on and who like react when these things happen? First of all, they prevent a lot of them from happening, but when they do happen, they react. How are we going to react when all of these institutions and agencies are headed by the clowns that Trump is putting in? And then coupled with that, the Musk evisceration of the federal workforce, specifically focused on regulators of businesses. And a huge business is, of course, food. The Republicans don't want all these people nosing around in slaughterhouses and restaurants and groceries and wherever they don't want that. It gets in their way. So I have to say that I just have this like queasy feeling about what the future holds there. You might want to start growing your own food right now. I'm serious. Because I don't know that you're going to be able to trust the food supply as much as we have in the past. So we will see. Okay, guys, I'm out of time. I can't believe I'm out of time. I didn't get to half of the stuff I intended to. Susan will be joining us tomorrow. She is now the mother of a grandmother of another beautiful, healthy little boy who was born since last we spoke, and everybody doing well, and Susan happy. So she'll take some time out from her grandmotherly ministrations and join us tomorrow. And I hope you will as well. Have a good one.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.